He drained his third cup of watery tea to the dregs and set to chewing the crust of fried bread that were scattered near him. Staring into the dark pool of the jar, the yellow dripping had been scooped out like a bowl, and the pool under it brought back to his memory the dark turf-colored water of the bath in Clongowes. The box of pound tickets at his elbow had just been refilled, and he took up idly one after another in his greasy fingers the blue and white ducats, scrubbed and sanded and creased and bearing the name of the pledger as Dolly or Mac Ivy. Pear buskins, decut, articles and white, men's pants. Then he put them aside and gazed thoughtfully at the lid of the box, specked with loose marks, and asked vaguely, "How much is the clock fast now?" His mother straightened the battered alarm clock that was lying on its side in the middle of the mantelpiece until its dial showed 11:45, and then laid it once more on its side. An hour and 25 minutes, she said. The right time now is 10:20. The dear knows you might try to be in time for your lectures. Fill out the place for me to wash, said Stephen. Katie, fill out the place for Stephen to wash. Bertie, fill out the place for Stephen to wash. I can't. I'm going for blue. Fill it out, you Maggie. When the enameled basin had been fitted into the well of the sink, and the old washing glove flung on the side of it, he allowed his mother to scrub his neck and root into the folds of his ears. and into the interstices at the wings of his nose. Well, it's a poor case, she said. When a university student is so dirty that his mother has to wash him. But it gives you a pleasure, said Stephen calmly. An ear-splitting whistle was heard from upstairs, and his mother thrust a damp overall into his hands, saying, "Dry yourself and hurry out for the love of godness." A second shrill whistle, prolonged angrily, brought on one of the girls to the foot of the staircase. "Yes, father." "Is your lazy bitch of a brother gone out yet?" "Yes, father." "Sure?" "Yes." The girl came back, making signs to him to be quick and go out quietly by the back. Stephen laughed and said, "He has a curious idea of genders. If he thinks a bitch is masculine, it's scandalous. Shame for you, Stephen," said his mother, "and you will live to rue the day you set your foot in that place. I know how it has changed you." "Good morning, everybody," said Stephen, smiling and kissing the tips of his fingers in adieu. The lane behind the trace was waterlogged, and as he went down it slowly, choosing his steps amid heaps of wet rubbish, he heard a mad nun screeching in the nuns' madhouse beyond the wall. "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." He shook the sound out of his ears by an angry toss of his head, and hurried on, stumbling through the mouldering offal, his heart already beaten by an age of loathing and bitterness. His father's whistle, his mother muttering. The scratch of an unseen monarch were to him now so many voices offending and threatening to humble the pride of his youth. He drew their echoes even out of his heart with an expression. But as he walked down the avenue and felt the grey morning light falling about him through the dripping trees, and smelled the strange wild smell of the wet leaves and bark, his soul was loosed of her miseries. The rain-laden trees of the avenue evoked in him, as always, memories of the girls and women in the place of Gerhardt. The Gerhardt Hauptmann, and the memory of their pale sorrows, and the fragrance falling from the wet branches, mingled in a mood of quiet joy. His morning walk across the city had begun, and he foreknew that as he passed the sloplands of Fairview, he would think of the cloistral silver-winged prose of Newman, that as he walked along the North Strand Road, glancing idly at the windows of the provision shops, he would recall the dark humour of Guido Cavalcanti and smile. That as he went by bird stone cutting works in Talbot Place, the spirits of Ibsen would blow through him like a keen wind, a spirit of wayward boyish beauty, and that passing a grimy marine dealer's shop beyond the levee, he would repeat the song by Ben Jonson which begins, I was not wearier, though where I lay, his mind when wearied of its search for the essence of beauty amid the spectral words of Aristotle, or acquaintance turned often for its pleasure to the dainty songs of the Elizabethans, his mind in a vesture of the doubting monk stood often in shadow under the window of that age to hear the grave and mocking music of the lutenist or the frank laugher of the waistcoaters, until a laugh too low, a phrase tarnished by time, of chambering and false honor, stunned his monkish pride and drew him and from his lurking place. The lure which he was believed to pass his days brooding upon, so that it had wrapped him from the companionship of youth, was only a garner of slender sentences from Aristotle's Poetics and Psychology and Synopsis Philosophy, Scholastis and Mentem Divi Thoma. His thinking was a dusk of doubt and self-mistrust, lit up at moments by the lighting of intuition, but lighting of so clear a splendor that in those moments the world pre-shilled about his feet, as if it had been the fire consumed, and thereafter his tango grew heavy, and he met the eyes of others with unanswering eyes, for he felt that the spirit of beauty had folded him round like a mantle, and that in reverie at least he had folded him with nobility, being acquainted with nobility. But when this brief pride of silence upheld him no longer. He was glad to find himself still in the midst of common leaves, passing on his way amid the scuffle and noise and slaughter of the city fearlessly, and with a light heart. Near the hoardings on the canal, he met the consumptive man with a doll's face and the brimless hat coming towards him down the slope of the bridge with the little steps, tightly buttoned into his chocolate overcoat, and holding his furled umbrella a span or two from him, like a diving rod. It must be 11, he thought, and peered into a diary to see the time. The clock in the diary told him that it was 5 minutes to 5. But as he turned away, he heard a clock somewhere near him, but unseen, beating 11 strokes in a swift precision. He laughed as he heard it, for it made him think of Macon, and he saw him a squat figure in a shooting jacket and breeches and with a fur coat, standing in a wind at Hopkins' corner, and heard him say, "Deadless, you are an antisocial being, wrapped up into yourself. I'm not. I'm a Democrat, and I'll work and act for social liberty and equality among all classes and sexes in the United States of the Europe of the future." 11. Then he was late for the lecture too. What day of week was it? He stopped at the newsstand to read the headline of the placards. Thursday, 10 to 11. English, 11 to 12. French, 12 to 1. Physics. He fancied to himself the English lecture and felt, even at a distance, restless and helpless. He saw the hits of his classmate meekly, bent as they wrote in their notebooks the points they were bidden to note, nominal definitions, essential definitions, and examples or days of birth or death. Chief works, a favorable and an unfavorable. Criticism side by side. His own head was unbent, for his thoughts wandered abroad and whither. He looked around the little class of students, or out of the window, across the desolate gardens of the green. An odor assailed him of cheerless cellar damp and decay. Another hid than his, right before him. In the first bench was poised squarely. Above its bending fellow like the head of prized appealing, without humility, to the tabernacle for the humble, worshippers about him. Why was it that when he thought of cranially he could never raise before his mind the entire image of his body, but only the image of the head and face? Even now, against the grey curtain of the morning, he saw it before him, like the phantom of a dream. The face of severed head or death. Mask, crowned on, and the brows by its stiff, black upright hair as by an iron crown. It was a Christ-like face, Christ-like in its pallor, in the wide, winged nose, in the shadowing below the eyes, and along the jaws, Christ-like in the lips that were long and bloodless, and faintly smiling. And Stephen, remembering swiftly how he had told Cranley of all the tumults and unrest, and longing in his soul, day after day, and night by night, only to be answered by his friend's listening silence, would have told himself that it was the face of a guilty priest who heard confessions of those whom he had not power to absolve, but that he felt again in memory the gaze of its dark, womanish eyes. Through this image he had a glimpse of the strange dark cavern of speculation, but at once turned away from it, feeling that it was not yet the hour to enter it. But a nightshade of his friend's listlessness seemed to be diffusing in the air around him a tense and deadly exhalation, and he found himself glancing from one casual word to another, on his right or left, in stolid wonder that they had been so silently emptied of instantness, senses, until every mean-shop legend bound his mind, like the words of the spell, and his soul shriveled up, signing with age as he walked on in a lane, among heaps of dead languages, his own consciousness of language was ebbing from his brain and trickling into the very words themselves, which set to bend and disband themselves in a wayward rhythm. The ivy Venus opened the wall, and Venus and twins opened the wall. The yellow ivy opened the wall, ivy up the wall. This video is taken for Navi Daria's page.